The stories you're about to see are real.
Oh my God!
Gentle giants. Provoked.
This is really the stuff of nightmares.
Real-life zombie slaves. And biblical swarms right out of a horror film.
Look at the birds.
Each frightening tale is so extreme, they seem like living nightmares. We're counting down the 10 most terrifying true horror stories on Weird, True, and Freaky. We begin with a parent's worst nightmare. No matter how cute things might seem, you can never turn your back on Mother Nature.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
British Columbia, Canada. Its plentiful waters make it a popular destination for fishermen of all kinds, including California sea lions.
California sea lions are found commonly on the west coast of America, so everywhere from Mexico all the way up to Alaska. And they're really highly intelligent creatures. They're even been known to work with other mammals like whales when hunting schools of fish.
It's a beautiful day at Stevenson Fisherman's Wharf, where visitors flock to see the famed fishing fleet's daily catch.
That's huge.
But today, a group of tourists are getting a different and far more entertaining dockside show.
Yeah.
The spectators and the sea lion all seem to be having a good time.
Imagine if he like flicked his tail and slapped us.
But in all the fun, the group makes a critical error. Ignoring posted warning signs, they begin feeding the hungry sea lion.
While people think sea lions are cute, they're still a wild animal. They're unpredictable.
With an empty belly and the promise of food still on its mind, the seal pops out of the water, just inches from a 6-year-old girl at the edge of the wharf. And what seems like a friendly hello may be something far more menacing. To everyone's horror, the hungry sea lion lunges out of the water, dragging the young child completely under the surface.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Sea lions are really strong, especially big males who can weigh up to 2,000 pounds. They have very sharp teeth that are designed for grabbing and tearing, so when they go to bite something, they can cause a lot of damage.
Oh my God! Oh
The young
my
girl's
God.
grandfather dives in after her, and it's not a moment too soon. He quickly grabs the girl underwater and pulls her back to safety.
Sea lion attacks on people are pretty rare, although they're increasing. There's more people going to places where sea lions live, so there's more interaction. And the sea lion is either defending its own territory, or it's been fed so much by people that it thinks people come with food.
The 6-year-old girl survives the terrifying seaside encounter with only a minor wound and a valuable lesson. There's nothing cute about a hungry animal.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Next, in our countdown of true horror stories, is number 9. Truth is often stranger than fiction. And in this case, it's also horrifying. It's like a science fiction monster, but this blob is not what you think. Penghu Archipelago, Taiwan. On this group of islands in the Taiwan Strait, many fishermen think they've seen it all. But here, at the edge of the deep sea, there's virtually no end to new discoveries.
New species are found in the ocean all the time. The ocean is big, the ocean is deep, and the ocean is hugely diverse. There's a lot of life in the ocean, and we're barely scratching the surface about what it all is.
In the early morning, a fisherman prepares for the day's work when he spots something strange on the dock. What at first appears to be just a chunk of slimy seaweed suddenly pulsates and moves. Then, this thing shows its true colors. A pink tongue-like appendage shoots out, and it almost seems like the glistening probe has a mind of its own. This terrifying lump of green goo is a deep ocean predator called a Nemertean, or ribbon worm.
Ribbon worms are generally found in the substrate, so they're in the sand or in the muck. So that's one of the reasons we don't see them that often. The long pink thing in the video is a proboscis, which is basically a tongue. And some of them have hooks on them, some of them are very sticky, some of them have toxins on them.
Displaying its long probe might be a sign this bizarre animal's preparing to defend itself from anything that crosses its path.
Ribbon worms live in an environment different enough that it wouldn't surprise me that one might have a toxin in it that could pack a wallop to a human being. So, like with everything else in the ocean, if you don't know what it is, treat it like it's dangerous.
Thankfully, humans aren't on the ribbon worm's menu. These strange-looking creatures prefer crabs, mollusks, and small fish. But like all things weird, true, and freaky, it's best observed from a distance. Look at the birds. Our true horror story countdown continues with number 8. An unexpected ride of terror, hundreds of feet up, that could be deadly. Kourou, French Guiana. This coastal town on the Atlantic Ocean is about 300 miles north of the equator. A tropical paradise with long sandy beaches and plenty of outdoor excursions, including rides way up in ultralight planes. On a sunny morning at the airfield, pilot Ramon Janteau is cleared for takeoff. He's taking a lucky passenger out to enjoy the sights of Kourou from high above. Little do they know, there's someone else on board this flight. Someone who doesn't belong. Minu's a local cat that hangs around the airport. Now, she's hanging on for dear life. The pilot has no clue about the feline stowaway, and any sudden turn could send Minu plummeting to her death. In order to survive, she may need to hang on for the entire flight.
When a cat senses danger, typically they like to escape. One way of escaping is to climb, so higher equals safer for most cats. Not exactly so here.
Thankfully, Ramon looks up and notices the terrified cat. He knows she could fall at any moment. As he circles back toward the landing strip, the sharp turn causes Minu to shift dangerously. She desperately tries to hold on, but it may already be too late.
Cats have incredibly strong and sharp claws, and when they climb a tree, normally they can dig in and get an amazing grip. On a metal surface, those claws don't work nearly as well.
Amazingly, Minu continues to hang on. And as the plane safely comes to a stop, Minu deplanes in a hurry. It's an extreme example that shows cats always land on their feet, even from hundreds of feet up.
I am having the absolute best time of my life.
Our countdown of true horror stories returns with number 7. When a heavyweight loses his temper, a bit of harmless teasing could cause a rumble in the jungle. Omaha, Nebraska. At the Henry Doorly Zoo, a family outing wouldn't be complete without a stop to see one of our most powerful distant kin. Lowland gorillas.
When you see Western lowland gorillas up close, you appreciate what magnificent animals they really are. They laugh and grieve just like humans, But they're also extremely powerful animals, especially the males that are called silverbacks.
On a fun excursion to the zoo, a family with 3 small children marvels at the up to 600-pound animals roaming the pen. But things inside this pen are much more complicated than they seem. Today, one of the younger gorillas has been testing Kajito, the 20-year-old dominant male. Challenges to see who's the real alpha are common. But today, the pressure has Kajito in a very bad mood.
Male silverback gorillas show their dominance, their aggressiveness, by adopting an aggressive posture, by thumping their chests and making vocalizations, and by moving in a threatening manner towards another male that's challenging them.
I think we're about to do something crazy.
Despite these signs of aggression, the parents and their children feel perfectly safe behind the 3-inch thick bulletproof glass windows. One of the children even playfully taunts the big silverback, beating her chest.
So in a zoo enclosure, the things that people who go to see the zoo do, like laughing, throwing things, thumping their chest like Tarzan, even smiling, showing their teeth, or making eye contact, these can have a very different meaning for the gorillas.
This little girl doesn't realize she's just issued a challenge to an already angry gorilla. Kajito reaches his limit, and then he snaps. With a force 6 times stronger than a human, the gorilla slams into the glass.
Imagine the power it would take to shatter 3-inch thick glass that's especially designed to withstand the impact of a truck. These are incredibly powerful animals.
Thankfully, the window doesn't completely break. The only lasting damage is a now terrified family that will think twice before visiting one of these heavyweights in the future. There's only one alpha in this troop.
Oh, man.
We'll continue our countdown in a moment, but first, to raise her frightening young, this spine-chilling beauty must conquer a beast. Riverside, California. Here, scientists at UC Riverside's Department of Entomology study all kinds of strange and fascinating insects. But one of these remarkable creatures is particularly unique, the emerald wasp.
The emerald wasp is a beautiful little metallic wasp. It's solitary, so unlike other kinds of wasps that live in colonies, this lady lives all by herself, and they have a very interesting life cycle.
These lone wolf wasps live and hunt on their own. But when it's time to settle down and have babies, this otherwise independent insect needs a little help. Willing or not, from this very big and formidable cockroach. As the emerald wasp descends, by size, the cockroach seems like an unlikely victim. But this wasp has a clever plan to subdue the giant. First, it grabs hold of the cockroach and stings twice. One sting pierces the abdomen, temporarily paralyzing his legs so he can't run away. But the second sting seals his fate, a powerful injection into the cockroach's brain.
The emerald wasp uses its stinger like a surgical instrument. It's injecting that venom in just the right spot on the cockroach, and once it's been injected at the base of the brain, it's kind of like a nerve blocker, preventing the nerves from talking to one another. This is really the stuff of nightmares.
The cockroach quickly calms down as the venom takes effect. The dose isn't meant to kill, but to control. This enormous roach is now a living, breathing zombie. With the cockroach under her spell, the wasp guides the huge insect back to her nest, lays a single egg on his abdomen, and leaves. that's when things get even creepier. A couple days later, the egg hatches and the emerald wasp larva begins to feed on the living cockroach. Any small mistake could spoil the meal and end the wasp larva's chances of survival.
Once the baby hatches, this teeny tiny larval wasp has to know just what to do, using instinct that's been encoded in its DNA to know just how to eat this cockroach in such a way, in such a sequence, that it's gonna keep every bit of that cockroach alive as long as it possibly can.
This time, the young wasp succeeds. Like a sci-fi horror film creature, the new adult crawls out of the fallen cockroach's hollow carcass and flies away. The next generation of one of the most complex and frightening life cycles on the planet.
They're on every power line, and every edge of every roof. Look at the birds.
After feeding Panaloo, I feel like he's getting to know me.
Our countdown of true horror stories continues with number 6. When a ferocious predator's in too deep, this rescue will take a village. Tamil Nadu, India. This expansive wildlife reserve is filled with diverse flora and fauna. And at the very top of the food chain is the area's most pervasive big cat, the leopard.
Leopards are extremely athletic. They can leap 20 feet into the air and run up to 40 miles per hour. They're so strong, they can drag a large kill like an antelope high up into the trees.
One of these agile creatures has strayed a bit too far and a bit too deep into civilization. Discovered early in the morning, he may have been trapped overnight, now hungry and helpless, near the bottom of a 35-foot well. If he doesn't get out, he'll die. A group of rangers and nearby residents refuse to let that happen. Lowering a makeshift ladder into the well, they anchor it to a tree and wait. Immediately, the leopard makes a confident leap toward the ladder. But he falls short, plunging into the water below. Now, he's stranded in the bottom of the well, with the ladder several feet too short to reach him. He jumps up the wall, only to slide right back down. And with each jump, he gets weaker and weaker. After several attempts, the leopard once again makes it back to square one. And he's even more tired than before. The rangers angle the ladder as close as they can. The leopard carefully uses his teeth and claws to pull it toward him, but it slips away.
After so much time trapped in this well, this leopard is likely frustrated, hungry, and fatigued. It can't sink its claws into stone the way it can a tree, so it can't pull itself out of the situation.
Finally, he makes one last grab for the ladder and makes it. With incredible dexterity, he slowly navigates the rickety ladder and walks up to the top of the deep well and freedom. This challenging but successful rescue proves it takes a village to raise even the most agile and deadly of beasts. We're about to reveal our true horror story number 5. But first, in the big city, this fearsome roaming gang is like a biblical plague.
Oh my God.
Houston, Texas. This sprawling city with a population of over 2 million people has its fair share of visitors. They come for the food, the nightlife, And in some cases, they come to join forces.
Birds live in urban environments for much the same reason that we do. There's lots of food, there's shelter, and for them there are also perches from which they can look for predators and also look for food below.
Right in the middle of this busy metropolis, this mix of crows, blackbirds, and grackles descend, seemingly from everywhere at once.
They're on every power line and every edge of every roof. Look at the birds.
No one knows for sure why all these birds have come to this same spot at the same time. Climate change has affected migratory patterns of many species around the world. This incredibly large congregation may be telling us something is amiss.
Sometimes birds swarm in a very orchestrated dance-like fashion that's referred to as a murmuration. However, what we see here is something different. The birds are flying erratically and they're ending up somewhere that's potentially dangerous for them.
Oh my God.
And bizarre, seemingly erratic flight patterns may indicate something far more sinister than a change in weather, has these birds acting strangely. Like the inspiration for Hitchcock's famous film, these birds may have lost their minds.
There was a famous case of birds called sooty shearwaters that had eaten algae that had the toxin domoic acid in it, and these birds died in large numbers because they crashed into buildings and flew in a way that caused them to get injured.
And yet, for the most part, they simply roost and stare. In fact, the same thing happens nearly every year. But each time they swoop in, the sheer scale of this nightmarish superflock is spine-chilling. Our true horror story countdown continues with number 5. Revered for their calm, wisdom, and majesty, you might not expect this one giant is anything but gentle. Chiang Mai, Thailand, a popular destination for those looking to avoid the hustle and bustle of city life. Here, elephant farms allow visitors to get up close to one of Earth's most enormous land animals, Asian elephants.
Asian elephants are the largest land mammal on the continent. They can be between 6 and 12 feet tall and between 6,000 and 12,000 pounds. They're smaller than African elephants, but still a very large animal to have an encounter with.
On a beautiful morning, tourist Whitney Laveau is living her dream, spending a day with one of her favorite living creatures.
I've loved elephants for a really long time, longer than I can actually remember. As soon as we get off the bus, they let us go up to them. They have sugar cane and bananas that we're allowed to feed them, and it's so exciting.
After some safety instructions from the farm staff, Whitney's paired with an elephant named Panaloo. She's allowed to feed, brush, and bathe him.
After feeding Panaloo, I feel like I'm getting closer to him. I feel like he's getting to know me, and I'm so excited to give him a bath. I am having the absolute best time of my life.
But while it seems to Whitney like she and Panaloo are forming a special bond, inside this colossal giant, a well of anger is slowly building and building.
Unfortunately, many elephants that are brought into captivity come in at a very young age and have been dominated over their whole lives. As they get older, this can lead them to have outbursts of anger or anxiety. Most of the time, this results in a human becoming injured.
That's when Whitney makes a critical error. She steps right in front of the elephant to brush his lower trunk.
I am not thinking about any danger at this point. Panaloo has been great, and everything else has gone really well.
Suddenly, without warning, what could be years of bottled up anger explodes. The mammoth pachyderm launches Whitney through the air like a rag doll.
He hit me with his tusk right in the middle of the chest with so much force that it completely knocked the wind out of me. The moment happened so fast. The next thing I know, I am in the air.
Elephants are incredibly strong. They can move up to 1,000 pounds. It was no more difficult for this elephant to toss aside that woman as it would be for a human throwing a pineapple across a room.
Amazingly, Whitney's not seriously injured in the encounter. With just a bruised sternum, she's able to continue the tour and count her blessings.
I don't blame Panaloo at all. It's an animal, and you never know how they're going to react. I still think they're incredible animals. I still love them, so it's not his fault at all.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Next, in our countdown of true horror stories, is number 4. Outnumbered and way outside his weight class, a brave underdog challenges who is the real king of beasts. Masai Mara National Reserve, Kenya. Home to some of the world's most lethal apex predators. But some of the aggressive predators here haven't quite reached the top of the food chain, like the tiny but lightning quick mongoose.
Don't let appearances fool you. Mongooses are brave, feisty animals, and many mongooses will bravely take on fierce predators that could easily kill them.
While on safari, a wildlife photographer is blessed to encounter a pride of lionesses who've surrounded one of these very feisty opponents, and he captures all the amazing action on camera. With these odds, her normal tactic would be to run. But for some reason, this mongoose comes out of the gate with an incredible show of force. And her bravado only serves to provoke the gang of big cats. The miniature one-woman army may already be in too deep.
Lions don't typically prey on mongooses, but this one seems to be egging them on. They may be playing with her, but they could end that game at any moment and actually kill her.
Amazingly, despite their size difference, the screeching mongoose is able to fend off the predators one-on-one. But then, the lions start closing in. Time is running out, so the horribly outnumbered mongoose makes a desperate move. She leaps up and bites one of the lionesses in the face. It's a sign that something primal is driving her assault, something that could get her killed.
It's likely that this mongoose is trying to distract the lions because she has pups nearby and she's trying to get them to safety underground. But she may be sacrificing her own life to save her offspring.
Miraculously, this final show of aggression seems to do the trick. The lionesses back off, and the mongoose decides it's finally time to hang up her gloves and retire, alive, and still a champion. True horror story number 3 is coming up. But first, this award-winning performance is to die for. Scurry, Texas. This rural town has a wide assortment of wildlife and more than its fair share of dangerous, venomous snakes. But for some serpents, venom isn't their most effective weapon. The next best defense is a powerful bluff. And one of the most talented con artists is the eastern hognose.
Venomous snakes, they can protect themselves with their venom. Non-venomous snakes, on the other hand, have evolved different ways to protect themselves.
Walking up his driveway, local Kenneth Giese notices a scuffle in the high grass. A feral cat has challenged one of these clever predators. So Kenneth decides to see just what this sly serpent is capable of. First, the hognose tries the tough guy act, hissing menacingly and spreading out flaps of skin on his head to mimic one of nature's deadliest snakes, the cobra.
Eastern hognose snakes are actually prey items to many predators. So they've evolved different ways to try to survive predation events. One of the ways they do it is they get really aggressive and they start acting like a really dangerous snake.
When that doesn't work, the eastern hognose has one more dirty trick up his sleeve. He pretends to die. And he doesn't just drop to the ground. This snake mimics the most agonizing and painful death ever imagined. It's a behavior that wards off animals looking for a fresh, unspoiled kill. At the end of this incredible and somewhat theatrical display, he rolls onto his back and lies perfectly motionless. The long, drawn-out death scene is finally over. Kenneth decides it's time to leave the hognose be and move on. And for the dramatic snake, this encounter is just one more opportunity to practice his craft of deception.
Oh my God.
We continue our countdown of true horror stories with number 3. Here's a horrifying freefall that could end all 9 lives in an instant. Ios Athanasios, Greece. Here in the city, tall buildings serve as a jungle gym for highly dexterous urban climbers. Cats.
Cats are great climbers because they have really sharp claws that can retract in. That provides great leverage for when they're climbing.
Stepping out onto a rooftop, a man sees one of these nimble felines walking near a drain hole 3 stories up, 40 feet off the ground. When suddenly, this 4-legged daredevil decides she wants an even better view down. She slowly inches out through the drain until half her body is hanging off the building. And at this point, she may be out too far.
Cats cannot climb backwards. In order to get back up, it would have to actually rotate itself upwards and then climb back up through the hole. It's unable to do that based on the grip that it has.
That's when the cat makes a desperate decision. She tries to scale up the outside wall. It's a near impossible move with potentially dire consequences. And it fails. She slips, and no matter how much she flails, nothing can stop her descent but the ground.
Cats falling from significant heights is so common that vets have a name for it. It's called the high-rise syndrome. Cats will end up righting themselves and landing on their feet. A lot of that actually has to do with how many stories they fall from. It may sound counterintuitive, but a cat falling from 3 stories is actually a greater risk of injuries because it doesn't have time to right itself.
But after just 2 seconds airborne, the cat repositions herself and lands on all 4s with the grace of an Olympic gymnast, seemingly unharmed. And as she's chased away by another cat, she'd better run fast. After this terrifying freefall, she doesn't have many of her 9 lives left. Next up is our true horror story number 2. Like some kind of alien egg waiting to hatch, the identity of this otherworldly organism is a chilling mystery. Great Yarmouth, England. In this quaint town in Norfolk, there's a rescue center that takes in all kinds of creatures. But one particularly odd-looking critter is one of a kind. Believe it or not, this small spherical bundle of flesh is a hedgehog named Nelson.
Hedgehogs are small mammals covered in non-poisonous spines. The spines are made of keratin, which is also what makes our fingernails and hair. And when they are threatened by a predator, hedgehogs roll into a ball, leaving just their spines out for protection.
Nelson has not a single hair or quill on his entire body. But he wasn't always like this.
When he came into us, he had some spikes, but not many. And he had fur, but gradually over time, both the spikes and the fur has fallen out, and as of yet, we've got no sign of them coming back.
It's not at all common for a hedgehog to be bald in the wild. However, it does happen rarely. It can be caused by a mutation, or by disease, or even by a traumatic event that happens to an individual early in life.
Without fur on his chest or belly, and without the thousands of inch-long spines on his back, Nelson has no defense from the weather or any predator. Thankfully, this wildlife rescue center's committed to caring for Nelson for the rest of his days.
What? It is backing itself out.
Oh my God! It's a great nutritional snack to just about any animal that can find one.
We'll continue our countdown in a moment. But first, good things usually come in small packages. But this tiny terror is about to become a monster. Miyazaki Prefecture, Japan. A Japanese entomologist named Hirofumi Kawano is creating a video to document the life cycle of a bizarre creature, the Hercules beetle, and its shocking mutation to adulthood could keep you up at night. Hatched out of an egg, the undulating beetle larva resembles a slimy worm-like creature. But worms don't usually grow this big, and the Hercules beetle just keeps on growing and growing. And believe it or not, this isn't its most disturbing stage.
That big white abdomen is going to shrink up and form the bulky round abdomen of a beetle. Wings are going to form from the back of this beetle. And meanwhile, while it's in the hard protective case of the pupa, the internal body structures are all soft.
The mesmerizing and to some repulsive process can take up to 2 years to fully complete. And before it reaches its true greatness, at any moment, it could become a meal.
Their whole life is dedicated to eating. So these pupa are these incredible fat reserves. Great nutritional snack to just about any animal that can find one.
Finally, the beetle molts for the last time. Now with the hardened shell and strong, tough horn. And while it looks like a horrific monster from a science fiction movie, luckily, it's completely harmless to humans. An incredible, transforming creature that proves, no matter how big or small the package, it's what's inside that counts. Now, it's finally time to reveal our true horror story, number 1. Beware all tree cutters. You never know what you'll find inside.
Oh my God!
Or how it could kill you. Washington, Virginia. Resident Ryan Saunders is sawing a tree that fell on his property. And when he pulls back his saw blade, he discovers something horrifying.
Oh my God!
Blood. It's the body of some creature living right in the center of a thick trunk. Now, sliced in two.
Holy! I accidentally sawed in half some sort of a large snake inside of this log.
It seems like it might be a serpent, and it's still alive.
It is backing itself out. What the?
The severed beast slowly oozes out of the log, and Ryan can't look away.
Oh my God, here comes its head.
When a snake gets cut in half, they can be kind of surprising because they'll continue writhing for a long time, and it's not really alive anymore. What's happening is the neurons and the muscles continue to fire, and so the animal continues to writhe for some time.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Finally, as the last inch of the creature comes pouring out, Ryan observes the most horrifying thing of all.
Maybe its head. Where is its head?
No matter where he looks, he can't find a head.
Still moving.
Not knowing which end is the head of the snake could be the biggest danger of all. Even a dead snake's severed head can be deadly if touched.
Crazy. Even after you cut the head off a snake, it can still be dangerous, especially if it's a venomous snake. You don't want to pick it up right away because those muscles continue to constrict and move, and that includes the venom glands.
Luckily, Ryan does the right thing and keeps his distance. For now, the identity of this long tree-dwelling creature remains a mystery. A potentially deadly serpent that refuses to die.
Oh my God!
They're unpredictable, revolting, and always unnerving.
Look at the birds.
True horror stories that prove nature can turn terrifying at any moment. And there's always more to come on Weird, True, and Freaky.
Oh, man.